Alright, let's go on to episode 6 of season 4 of Fargo, and we already know that the shit is going to hit the fan because Dr. Senator is no more. But this is, I feel like we're watching a turning point now where it's like we had this sort of truce for a while about one of the kids of each side being on the other side, but I'm getting the idea that we're going to start getting more reckless to the point that that whole idea may be crumbling to the point that how long is it going to be before tensions get so high and things get so heated that we might be forgetting what's at risk before we start throwing bullets at each other, if not more. And so when we start off, we actually start off with the rest of Ethelrita's birthday, after Loy has come in and desecrated the cake for Zero to have some of it. And there's just immediately this vibe, this really sort of dark vibe, that sort of sets the tone for the whole episode, where it's like, it just feels like we're heading in a darker direction now than we already were, which, really after the death of Dr. Senator, I really wouldn't expect any other feeling going into this one. So, like, when episode 5 ended, I was, like, kind of excited, but now we're kind of getting to that sort of scared feeling of, okay, now there's some stuff that's a bit more obvious than I had initially realized. I had an epiphany or two during this one that I probably should have had much sooner, but for some reason didn't. But kind of take things one at a time. After we get the birthday scene, I believe the next thing is when we see Otis attacked in his house by Cannon's side. And the thing here is that I didn't necessarily think, nor would I think, that they would kill Otis this early, but especially since Jack Houston's so high in the credits. But also the fact that when he's being strangled, kind of on his back with a bag over his head, once again, I'm assuming we see all this Coen Brothers stuff and these homages everywhere. Serious, serious vibes of the opening strangulation scene of Anton Chigurh strangling the cop in No Country for Old Men, which resulted in a horrific death. That strangulation did, so it's like, there was a brief moment in my mind where it's like, they are not killing Otis right now. There's no way, especially since it's the opening scene of the episode. But no, naturally, of course, they're getting him to switch sides. And this is a case where if Otis was going to switch sides, you would have maybe thought it would be like an arc that happens over episodes, rather than the instantaneous thing that happens here. But I mean, it does make sense. They did almost kill him, so... And Loy gets a little speech that kind of pushes him over even farther to that side, and it's sort of like, we had all these scenes with the Consigliaries meeting, and we saw these monologues that Dr. Senator had, and so it was kind of nice to kind of see where Dr. Senator kind of had that sort of wiser attitude about him, and how the monologues seem to have, like Lois kind of picked up the monologues where Dr. Senator left off. And it kind of, that's what I kind of felt like the whole doll thing was coming from. So that was kind of a nice sort of transition from that sort of, where I was talking about in a couple of previous videos about how you would think the roles would be reversed and Dr. Senator would be the one more kind of wiser and more powerful than Loy is, but as I've been saying also, Loy is starting to show how much of a leader he is, but like I said, now that we're starting to get more reckless on both sides, it's kind of hard to tell, because we're definitely getting a darker side to Josto as well, because I just semi-complimented Josto recently, talking about how he's been very good about wanting to make sure that nobody's killed, but obviously things are starting to crumble. So we do have this thing where, when I talked about, there was a split second in my mind where I thought Otis might be leaving us, because this strangulation was so intense. The same thing for Loy sending Zelmer and Swanee after Gaetano to sort of put a balance in this a little bit. And it's another case where I almost thought that a major character was already dead. What it appears to be is Zelmer and Swanee came in, and when they shot him in the head, it sort of looked like it was right here, like they just really terribly grazed him. but it still looked like significant damage. And he looked dead for a little bit. And so my immediate thought also was, is this exactly what Loy wanted? I can't remember if they got into specifics or not, but if this is exactly what Loy wanted, or if this is kind of a hint at they're a bit more reckless than Loy expects them to be, which could bite him in the ass. Is kind of the vibe I got from that they subdued Gaetano so drastically. But then again, I suppose there's really no other way to go after him, because he's such a loose cannon in himself. But yeah, I got vibes that I don't know how much in Loy's favor it's going to end up being, using Zelmare and Swanee in his favor. But now the question is where do we go with Gaetano? Because he's now strapped to a chair, and he's just kind of here. But I can assume, which is pretty much the exact opposite way we've seen him up to this point. So I'm really curious what they're going to do with him from here on. And I don't know, because I had said before that I had assumed that if we were going to lose him, it would be by Josso's hand, to sort of finally give him his ultimate rise, like his final sort of rung in the ladder for his rise to power. And so we put, into kind of on the opposite of that, now we've got this whole thing going on, where the whole New York family, and now he's been informed that if he's going to officially rise to power in the eyes of the New York family, that he's going to have to, he and Gaetano are going to have some sort of truce, or at least get along enough. And of course, Josto sees this as, they said try. So we know that Josto knows that that's not really in the cards, especially with the way things are right now. That would be a very difficult thing to do. So we are starting to see a very much darker side of Josto, though, where he does finally get the idea to kill Satchel. And the fact that he is so certain about this decision, like the way he's like it feels like the most powerful we've seen him up to this point, when he makes this decision. And that brings in the character of Anton, who's an interesting character because of the way it feels like there's very much a sort of Godfather quality in this scene where we actually see him with his family, and he's like there with his wife, and Rabbi was there talking to his wife, and it's like a whole lot of build up for this character, and it's like either he's about to get really major, do something really major, or he's about to die. And they kind of had me convinced that he was going to be a bit more major, especially with this task he'd been given to kill Satchel, which kind of stems from Calamine. And Calamine is getting on my nerves. Like, Calamine is, like, way too comfortable, like, throwing orders around and, like, making the decisions he's doing and just doing the shit he's doing. I don't care for it. If one of the two between him and Antoon had to die in this episode, Calamina definitely would have been my choice, but I suppose that's good for his character that I hate him that much, because I'm pretty sure that's kind of the idea. So there is that. But yeah, once again, this scene that they build up where he's taking Satchel out to supposedly shoot him was built up so well that once again I became convinced that a major character might actually die. But then I had an epiphany. Shortly before the episode ended, I had an epiphany. And I feel like an absolute idiot. Because I've been wondering, like we were talking about before, about how crucial Ben Whishaw was going to end up being because of his introduction in the first episode. It's like clearly he's going to be one of the major characters, but there was an episode or two there where he kind of seemed like he was just a side player. But you got this sense that he was going to somehow be a big factor in the story. And I've gotten so used to hearing him called Rabbi and calling him Rabbi that the rest of his name was not even occurring to me. And maybe they did it before and I just wasn't even thinking about it. But there was a particular moment in this episode where Josto refers to him strictly by his last name, Milligan. And it's like, oh, shit, that was just a giant clue. Now, I could be jumping to conclusions, but I feel like there's like no way that this is anything else, unless it's some massive red herring, and the fact that I don't recall. Well, no, we have the guy that Loy was giving the guns to. Is a connection. But you're always kind of looking for those connections from season to season. Um, and yes, so we've been saying this whole time that Rabbi has been like a father figure to Satchel, and his last name is Milligan. So when Satchel grows up, surely if he lives to get to that point where he grows up, there's a good chance he would take his father figure's last name, thus leading us to Bokeem Woodbine from season 2. Like I said, I don't know how if they've thrown the name Milligan around before, and it just wasn't registering. But when Josser said it in this episode, it was like, and it wasn't even like I was still kind of convinced that Satchel might die when Anakin took him out. So it was like maybe that was just I don't know, but yeah. And then it's like because I was also wondering about how I was saying that it felt ominous when Rabbi was planning to run off with Satchel when should things get heated, because I feel like when they usually build something like that up, that it never comes to fruition because one of them ends up getting killed. But it's pretty clear now after Rabbi killed Anakin that they're gonna actually sort of go off, and now it's like wherever they go off is surely going to be. We're gonna kind of see somewhat of a birth of Mike Milligan, I imagine. I don't know if it'd be like all the way up to the point, or if they're just gonna kind of say, like, yeah, you get the point. It'll be that kind of thing where we just kind of assume that he eventually became Woodbine in season 2. But yeah, and that makes and now when you think back to Mike Milligan in season 2, and to think that even if he is sort of raised by Rabbi, it's like you can see like the Loy in him. Like it makes too much sense now. So I don't know if I was late on that. I probably was, but that's kind of like actually the perfect tie-in. So as far as who else are we missing? Deafy is pretty much missing from this episode. We get that one shot of him with no dialogue, watching shit go down. And it's like we get the sense that he seems. You can never tell about Deafy if he's in the dark or not. Because he seems a bit too sort of in the know to not be picking it. Like he has too much of a sly expression on his face when he's just looking at shit without saying anything to be somebody that doesn't know. Maybe that's just Timothy Oliphant's natural face. I don't know, but I am wondering what is going on with him and what his interactions with Otis are going to be. Because like I said, I'm still interested in how big of a part he's going to play, since Timothy Oliphant's not in the main cast list. He's under the guest stars, which is still weird to me because he's obviously a major player, but as we saw with Dr. Senator, maybe not for long. I don't know. But lastly, the person I've been really amped up about this whole season is Jessie Buckley. And because we didn't really get her in the last episode. We basically got her as much as we got Deafy in this one, because it was just one shot, and then that was it. And it turns out that shot in the last episode is just a full circle to get to her last scene in this episode, which is interesting. And we don't really get much progression on her, though we do get something. That letter that Ethelreda wrote has now gotten to Dr. Harvard, but she doesn't really get to figure out who it's from or anything. She's kind of left in the dark. So the thing here is that she's clearly been caught in some way. And she already got caught when she got fired from her last job, and so she's basically been caught again now by this, in quotes, anonymous letter. And it's like, I can't help but wonder if she's going to figure it out relatively quickly. Because we still haven't touched on yet that Ethelreda left the notebook in the closet. So she can, if she somehow sees the letter, she can probably match the handwriting, I would assume. So, but we're still not there yet. So the thing that we leave here is she's going to kill again the moaning patient that we've been dealing with, or she's been dealing with. And the thing here is that it's the idea that it would almost seem like sloppy writing, almost, where it's like she's been almost caught, or she's been caught once, almost caught again, even if people don't quite know the extent of what she is or what she's been doing. But so you would think that she would like maybe tone down what she's doing, but it's actually scary to think that it's almost like she's addicted to it, because it's like she seems to be a character that's really good at covering her tracks because she clearly hasn't been found out yet, despite the fact that she's one of those killers that has a closet of evidence. But the fact that she's always this close to being caught and found out doesn't stop her from keeping on doing it, because clearly the moaning patient was taken care of in the same fashion, given the satisfied look on her face. So the fact that she can't seem to stop herself from doing that kind of thing, like I said, where it's almost like an addiction. Like we were trying to figure out why she would have poisoned the pie that Swanee ended up eating, and it's like, did she go after Ethelreda for a reason, or is she just addicted to doing this? So that makes her all the more scary. She can't even stop herself. So I'm really curious to see where that gets her. But I would like to know. I mean, I can only assume she would somehow make the connection between the notebook and the letter. But I guess we'll find out. So I am excited to get to episode 7 and the rest of the reviews for this month, in quotes. And then we've got some new stuff coming right after that, like Mank and Wild Mountain Time, which I'm probably one of the only people that's extremely excited for. And something else big that I can't remember off the top of my head, but I probably will as soon as I turn the camera off. So until all of that stuff, I think that's it for now.